But let's talk about what Tennessee did. John Adams has covered the Lady Vols extensively. What is the number one thing you like about the Kim Caldwell hire as the next basketball coach of the Lady Vols? What do you like, John?
Well, her teams have an unorthodox style play, and it's enabled her to win wherever she's been. She hasn't been many places. She's been at lower levels, but she plays full court, up tempo, presses all over the place, uh, plays a lot of people. If you're trying to ascend in the SEC, you're not going to beat South Carolina. You're not going to beat LSU. You're not going to beat out Texas with a conventional approach. I don't believe. I don't think you can beat those programs with your. They have some of the best, three of the top five coaches in the country. So I think it's not a bad idea to try something different, something unorthodox. And I'm a fan of up tempo basketball anyway. I like the full court game. I like teams that press.
Yeah. So, John, I want to stick on that for a minute. I agree. That's the positive. It's very exciting. Marshall was first, I think, in 3 points attempted this year too, and third in 3-pointers made. They were fourth in steals, so they were all over the place. But given what we saw with South Carolina on Sunday, is the women's game still at a point where, as much as it's gone more up tempo, where it's not quite like the men's game yet, isn't it still at a point where defense and having a size advantage down low is the biggest advantage you can have in the game?
Well, I think we saw that with the men's game too. To have Zach Edey, for example, and UConn could match him with a 7-1 or 7-2 center. Yeah, that's always an advantage if you have that, but not many teams have that. I mean, Tennessee had a 6'6" center this year, Tamari Key. She was tall. That's all. She wasn't. She wasn't active. She wasn't that skilled a basketball player. She just had size, and her size was a factor. So, yes, size is a factor, but I just think when you're recruiting the very elite players, I think those players are still going to go to South Carolina. They're going to LSU. They're going to UConn still. I just don't know if Tennessee can get those kind of players right now.
Well, the good news is maybe they can't get those type of players, but aren't there more of those type of players than we thought of back in the day? It seemed like if you got a Candace Parker, if you got a Maya Moore, you're going to win a championship or two. At least there's more of them now. There's more players that can make a huge lift in your program, correct?
Yeah, but there's still a limited number of 6'7" players. I mean, Camilla Cardoza. I just think, and Kayla pointed out. I mean, that still gives you an edge. I mean, she's not just tall; she's a skilled basketball player, and she knows how to use her size, just as Zach Edey does in the men's game. So, I still don't see that many players like that. But yes, there are more of them. What I'm seeing a lot more of are perimeter players, are really skilled ball handlers, outside shooters. There are a number of those type players came into the game this year as freshmen and did really well, following in the footsteps of Caitlin Clark. Not saying they'll be that good, but same kind of similar players. We're seeing much more of that. The game has really evolved where they're more playmaker types, players that can make big plays, and I think that adds to the popularity.
You know, John, it's funny you say you don't have to be the next Caitlin Clark. Well, I would say Trae Young's not the next Steph Curry, but he's a guard you can build a program around. He's kind of like a poor man's version. So I think you're going to see that in women's basketball a lot. I think you're going to kind of see poor man versions of Caitlin Clark, and I think you see that some players in the NBA, and nobody's turning those players down. I mean, a B plus Steph Curry is still a pretty good basketball player. I don't think there's any question about that. John's appearance brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service right here at joenewbertcollision.com. JoeNewbertCollision.com. And when we talk about the greatest skill that she might have, Kim Caldwell is incredibly young. And I think she views this as a rebuilding job, even though, John, I'm not sure it's a rebuilding job. I feel like the three of us could have a top 10, 15 national class in recruiting, but she seems to have that fire and that spunk. And I think that's good for this job, even though I don't think it's a complete rebuild.
Well, I guess rebuild now is defined differently. You don't have anybody that comes in with a 5-year plan, Billy Napier, of rebuilding a program. It's not going to resonate well. A rebuild now is flipping your roster with transfers, kind of like Nate Oates did at Alabama with the men's team that made the Final Four. Tennessee's roster right now is probably worth the worst roster in Lady Vols history. And so,
wow, do you really, guys? Both of you, you both know more Lady Vols than I do. So, is it that
well?
bad?
I mean, I've been here since '87. It's the worst roster I've ever seen. If you don't add transfers, particularly if you're going to play a completely different style of play, I don't know a lot of players on this roster that could play full court up tempo very well. I saw this team against Ohio State in December, and seemingly had 1 million turnovers against that Buckeyes full court pressure. So I just think there's a lot of work to do. I think the main thing about this hire, when Danny White made it, he had to go to the boosters, and I'm talking NIL supporters when I say boosters, and say, okay, can you get behind this hire? You got to do that because they have to be able to invest. She needs to
basketball hire, right?
Yes. You got to be able to go out and get transfers and transform this roster because it's a losing roster right now.
Yeah, John, to your point on that, it's one of the things, and I talked about this yesterday, Danny White's philosophy is he doesn't always make the biggest splash hire in terms of the home run hit, but one of the big things going back to his days at Buffalo is he likes coaches who have early success. And Kim Caldwell did have early success in Marshall. She was there 1 year and took them to insane heights. I also like what Dave and I talked about yesterday, which is he got a better bargain for Kim Caldwell than he would have gotten for Lindsey Gottlieb or some of those other people. Do you think maybe going into his mind was, if I can get a bargain on Kim Caldwell, we can redirect some of the booster funds to NIL money to get the right transfers into the program right now?
Yeah, I can't break down how all that money goes, but I do think, and I do think, yeah, he got her cheaper than he would say a Lindsey Gottlieb. But the thing about a Lindsey Gottlieb, I mean, yeah, she's well known now in women's basketball circles, but she's not well known in terms of the general populace. There are only a few women's coaches that are. Gino is, Kim Mulkey is, Dawn Staley is, but other than those three, I mean, I just don't think, the casual sports fan knows who anybody is. So I do think, yeah, you could say it's a bargain hire financially. I was on a West Virginia statewide radio show yesterday, and the host talked to me a little bit about Kim Caldwell. And I said, do you think she'll be able to sell her program to boosters and no money in return? Said, yeah, he said, without a doubt, they're going to love her. So, I mean, that's really what it takes right now.
It is. And John, there's a pervasive thought that was on campus that, hey, if this young lady goes and puts up 22 points and 8 rebounds, the NIL money should just start flowing. It shouldn't be a matter of whether or not she's popular or it's a good investment. That was the mindset. So hopefully that's the most encouraging thing I think I've heard about this young coach. She comes in and she says, you got to earn your NIL money. You got to be at these events. And that's interesting to me, because Tennessee can get a couple of those people that are paying, goodness gracious, $2 million for an NIL to dole out a couple of $100,000 for a women's basketball player, you can change this program like in 2 years, literally.
Well, you could do it in a year. You get pay 8 of them $200,000 a piece. That's 1.6 million. Go get them.
How good can the Lady Vols? Let me ask you both this: how good can the Lady Vols be this year with this roster? Because fair or not, to some extent, some people are going to judge this coach by year one. 15 seconds, Newbert Collision Center.
In its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Caleb, I want to start with you. What should this Tennessee this Tennessee Lady Vols program expect out of year one?
It's hard to say because I don't know who they're going to get in the transfer portal, but I do think Danny White made this hire with the early splash in mind, because that has been Danny White's mantra. He's always been about making sure that the first year is significantly better than the last year of the other coach, no matter what. And so I think that just given White's track record and given Kim Caldwell's track record at the two places she's taken over, they shouldn't hold it against her if she doesn't do this, but I wouldn't be surprised with a 25-win Sweet 16 team next year.
It's important to note that John's eyes about popped out of the YouTube channel. So
I'm dead serious.
John, where are you on that?
Well, I mean, yeah, if she gets 5 or 6 top transfers, I mean, right now there's no way this roster right now. I don't care who the coach. Gino could come in here. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament with this roster.
I mean, John, they were 1 game away from the Sweet 16 this past year with Kelly Harper. And I know it's different. They've lost some players, but like they're 2 years removed from, remember, they went into the 2022-23 season, a top 5 program when they added Rakia Jackson. There was a lot of expectations of them doing well. I don't see why she won't add a lot of transfers that could stand out. And I do believe, there are some people who were recruited for their ability to shoot and not necessarily haven't lived up to that ability. Is that fair to say yet, John? I mean, we're talking like, the Sarah Puckett's, the Kaya Wins, those type of players. I mean, the one thing I'll say in Harper's defense is she wanted an inside-out game. The problem is a lot of the outside players she recruited have just never turned into a shooter the way they were supposed to.
Well, Sarah Puckett's one of the best players on this current roster, and I don't see her playing this full court game. And there are a number of players on this roster that can't play that game. I mean, look, they're going to come in. I mean, Texas, LSU, and South Carolina, Oklahoma's got most of its team back. They're coming back for that COVID year. Ole Miss, Alabama. I mean, they're way down the list now. What they need to do, if Kim Mulkey went out last year to LSU and got the top 2 transfers. Well, if Tennessee can get, I think Tennessee needs to get about the top 3 or 4 transfers to win 25 games.
I mean, I'm just saying, look, part of her system is relying heavily on the 3 ball. And it's not like Tennessee doesn't have a few shooters on this team.
Wait, can't you just go ahead and get shooters?
What?
And you can do that too, yeah.
Yeah, in the transfer portal, you can get spot-up shooters. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, but you got to get people that can play full court. They're 3-point shooters. They're going to get left in the dust.
No, I'm not arguing with you. Legacy Caleb is the one who's saying that this thing's just going to go swimmingly. I'm telling you that I don't know that, Caleb, they're going to win. I mean, to say they can win 25 games and make the Sweet 16 in year one, that's pretty optimistic.
Guys, I work backwards from Danny White's history of hiring, and maybe that's stupid of me, but every hire he's ever every hire he's ever made has had significant early success that was significantly greater than the coach before them, no matter how bad it was. Guys, John, you do remember when Josh Heupel was hired and we thought the roster is so bad, they aren't built for this offense that Josh Heupel's going to run, and they're going to collapse his first year. And he surprisingly went 7-6, and there's an argument that if he had started Hendon Hooker the whole year, he goes 8-5 at the very least, and he was a bad call away from 9-4 when you think about Purdue in the Music City Bowl. And so, I mean,
well, if they'd done a little bit more, they'd have been 10-3, huh?
Okay. Well, there was
I mean, come on.
There was
but they did go 7, Caleb,
which was significantly better than the 3-7 team a year before.
Okay.
And a 3-7 team that lost everybody. John, you and I both know an average run-of-the-mill coach goes 3-9 with that roster in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm all for what Josh Heupel did. I think he did a tremendous. His job, his first year winning 7 games with that roster was tremendous. I just don't see these situations the same way. Just because Danny White hired somebody, they don't suddenly there's not some mystical quality. Oh, Danny White hired them. Oh, that's 25 wins right there. I mean, maybe if she gets transfers, that's what I don't rule that out. If she can get transfers, she can move, really move up in this conference. What she also needs to do, they need to schedule light to get your 25 wins. They're already in New York, playing in Brooklyn in December against Louisville, UConn, or there's one other team in there that's pretty Iowa. So maybe they lose that game, but if you schedule really, really light in non-conference, you can pile up a lot of wins, but you still can't get to 25.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this. I'm going to ask this in our poll question, our YouTube question. Do you care if Lady Vols win in year 1 under Kim Caldwell? Yes, a bit. Yes, a lot. They're ready. No, the roster is bad. 56% say yes, a bit. 38% say yes, a lot. They're ready. No, the roster is bad. Gets 6% of the vote. Probably deserves a little bit more.